All right, we're here with Dave Kaval, the president of the A's. And Dave, take us through the process of making the final decision that Las Vegas was where you wanted to make the A's permanent home.
Well, it's very exciting. We have an incredible site, right off the 15. Really a location that's great for locals as well as tourists. The old Wild West site, the 49 acres that we entered in a purchase and sale agreement last week. We think it can be an incredible home for the A's for our relocation to Las Vegas, and it's something we're very excited about.
Can you take us through the process of what happens next in terms of Major League Baseball putting in for the location transfer of the franchise and the timeline of when that is going to happen?
Well, the first step is finalizing the public-private partnership with basically the elected officials, both at the state level and at the county level. We're in conversations of that right now. That allows us to finalize the financial plan and submit a relocation request to Major League Baseball later this year. If that all goes well, we could be breaking ground next year and opening the stadium in 2027.
The 2027 timeline seems long. They built Allegiant Stadium in 31 months, and this is a smaller stadium, though it does have a partially retractable roof. Take us through why that is such a long timeline to get the stadium built.
Well, I mean, even though the stadium is 32,000 compared to 65,000, the components are all very similar. So the construction timelines are almost the same. And so it's going to take around that much time. We have to get all the planning, get everything set in stone. So that's the timeline that the construction teams are telling us. I suppose there is some chance it could be slightly quicker, but I think that's a realistic timeline to open the stadium.
The A's lease with the Oakland Coliseum is up at the end of next season, and conceivably you are going to have to find a place to play starting in the spring of 2025. What is the plan at this point for the A's?
We're working closely with Major League Baseball to identify the best interim solution where we can actually play. It could be a couple years or maybe an extension to our lease in Oakland. We could have the option, because we've worked with the Aviators, to actually play at Las Vegas ballpark in Summerlin. And it's important to remember, too, that even when the team comes, the Aviators are going to stay and both teams are going to be in the market, kind of like the Golden Knights and the Silver Knights. And so that's going to be a great thing for the community. So it could be a mix of those outcomes between now and our opening in 2027 timeline.
Is there a possibility that the team could start playing in Summerlin starting next season before the lease is up and just say we're going to make the clean break and we're going to start in Southern Nevada?
That's really up to Major League Baseball, because they kind of dictate with the schedule what's possible and the timing. So I would have to almost defer to them on that scheduling and how that would work. We're going to work very closely with them to determine the best path that works for all the key stakeholders and to ensure that the team has an acceptable interim location before the new stadium opens.
Obviously, when you're talking about that many games that could potentially be played on that turf with the Aviators and the Big League A's, that is something that is going to, I'm sure, come up. Is there a possibility of a schedule split with maybe Ho-Ho-Cam Park, your spring training facility, for part of the year, and then also part in Summerlin to try and alleviate that issue?
I think that's unlikely, because I think the league probably wouldn't go for that. But I wouldn't rule anything out. I think we need to be creative in how we handle the interim years before the stadium opens. But knowing that one of the options is the Summerlin ballpark, Las Vegas ballpark, provides us another opportunity and way to potentially enter the market. So I think it's an important option to have.
When this journey began, Major League Baseball gave you carte blanche to look at any city for potential relocation. You guys started with Las Vegas and ended with Las Vegas and never really looked anywhere else. What is it about this area that made you lock into our city?
Well, it's a great sports market, and it starts with the local fan. I've seen it at the Golden Knights games or Aviators or to the Raiders games to a lesser extent. The local community, the 2.3 million people, love sports, and they come out and they root for their teams and they have high energy. And that's really appealing for us in terms of establishing a very strong fan base. When you add the tourists on top of that, and then the resorts and the casinos as partners, it really provides for a great combination of factors for a professional sports team. And I think you've seen that with the success of the other teams, and I think you'd see that with the A's in Las Vegas as well.
Can you talk about the funding component of this? I know you registered as a lobbyist up at the state legislature in Carson City. You've also hired lobbyists to try and work with our state lawmakers. Can you explain how that is going to work and how it's going to impact the taxpayers here in Southern Nevada?
Well, it's very clear we want to work hand in hand with the governor, Steve Yeager, who runs the assembly leader, Nicole Cannizzaro, who has the Senate majority leader, on a package that makes sense for all parties, that's fiscally responsible, that leverages the fact that our stadium is going to bring over 400,000 incremental new tourists to town, which is going to generate a lot of new revenue and fiscal dollars for social services and schools and things like that. And so I think it's important that we craft something that works for all parties. Those discussions are ongoing. I've made several trips in the last week or two to Carson City. We're working with the county, Jim Gibson, the chairman of the county commission, and all those people are working really with a can-do spirit to see if something can be put together effectively, because obviously landing a Major League Baseball team is a big deal. There's only been one relocation in 50 years, and this is a great way to get a team in the near term for the community.
When do the A's expect to unveil renderings of this stadium and the actual plan for the site?
We are working on that right now. There's a call this afternoon, a Zoom with our design team. We're looking a lot at the site plan. You know, we have 49 acres there, and so we have the ability to have the stadium plus parking plus a mixed-use development, you know, a ballpark village, you know, bars and restaurants and nightlife and excitement around the venue that makes it a destination all 365 days a year. And I think that's going to be really appealing for both tourists and locals to have that in that location.
In the short term for the A's, they're going to continue playing in Oakland this year, and I relate it to maybe a divorce that's taking place, but both spouses are living under the same roof on a short-term basis. How are you going to handle that part of the transition from Oakland to Southern Nevada?
Well, you know, we know this is a hard message for our fans in Oakland, possible relocation. We also know that this has been uncertain for some time, and having some direction that everyone knows where this is headed, I think, is important. It's been going on over 25 years, the A's trying to find a permanent home in a variety of different communities and locations. And we have a great path in Southern Nevada. And that's why we're turning our full focus to Las Vegas and making that happen.
The land that you've purchased for the stadium fits in with what you have said all along, either on the Strip or Strip adjacent. In this case, it's Strip adjacent, which I think benefits the local community and local fans a little more in terms of getting in and out of the stadium. How much was that a factor as you started to narrow down the sites of where you were going to build?
In many ways, it was the top consideration. That and the fact that we have enough land to do a ballpark village, which we think makes it a full year-round attraction, were the two key items. When we did focus groups, interviews, we interviewed thousands of people in the local community. We heard loud and clear, make it easy to get to. Ingress, egress, parking, where am I going to be? How's it going to work? I don't want to sit in traffic for an hour. And this site provides all of that. And I think will be a very easy place for people to get to and come to games regularly.
Wrapping up here, as the fans now are starting to get excited about the A's coming down here, when are they going to hear something more? When is the next step going to be before they kind of hear maybe the next part of the plans for you guys?
Well, I think that's going to happen fairly soon. You know, obviously, we're working with the legislative leadership on the public-private partnership, the incentive package. We're also working with Major League Baseball on the relocation deal. So all of that is going to be in the news over the next, several months. And we're going to continue to express, our points of view on the site, gather feedback from fans, and do everything we can to introduce ourselves in a respectful way that actually gets really positive input from the community, which is going to be an important part of this.
Dave, thanks for taking the time. We look forward to talking to you more as we go through this entire process.
Thanks so much.